Right, the new front master cylinder's turned up. As you can see there, master cylinder chrome, but 11/16 bore. Anyone who watched the last video will know I had trouble with my front brake. Wouldn't bleed up, well it bled up properly, but I had way too much travel on the lever. And when I checked, I found out through an error of my own, through not reading the description properly, but also an error on the seller's behalf because he listed it for a soft tail, but it was a 1/2 inch bore on the master cylinder, which just isn't enough. So we'll get this thing unboxed and see what we've got. Come from obviously it's Drag Specialities, but it comes from a company called Hog Parts, which I use for quite a few bits and pieces. I also use another company called V-Twin Mania. They're good for like lots of parts, Harley parts and stuff. So what we've got is just a chrome master cylinder kit with lever and everything. Just get this thing opened. The full kit basically. Lever, new banjo bolt, slightly different design to the older one, but I'm not that bothered about that. So what we shall do now is set to and get it fitted. I've already removed the old one, drained the brake system down completely. I've removed the old one. As I say, the old one's off a newer Sportster or off an older custom that uses a 1/2 inch bore master cylinder, but it's basically it's off the newer Sportsters that use the 1/2 inch bore master cylinders. So I'll get that cleaned up and make sure there's no brake fluid in it, and then I'll just resell it. So, but for now we're going to get this fitted. So I'll just knock you off for now and get you set up in a different spot. We'll get this put on and then we'll get on with braking, bleeding the brakes up. Right, back in a minute. Right, first things first with this, just take the end cap off, sorry the clamping cap. Stick that down there for a sec. Now I've got to put my mirror on first, which I've got the washer. Let's grab the washer. Right. Done that wrong. Now I might not have the... I've just done that wrong again. Get there eventually. That's better. Do you know what? That actually fits a lot better as well than the last one did. It goes into the chrome switch housing, has notches on it where this part of this master cylinder bracket sort of sits into the notch, so it positions it properly, and that actually fits well. Now I was a bit thingy about the wiring for the mirror, because this is a slightly wider master cylinder than the other one, but I managed to pull probably about 1/2 inch. I could probably pull a lot more through, because if anyone who's watched these videos, if you remember, I did pushed it through a bit more than was needed, so it's probably all bunched up in here, but it allows me to pull a little bit of wiring through, and I pulled about 1/2 inch through, so the mirror is fine. Now anyone that hasn't watched these videos thinking, why do you need a wire on the mirror? These have got indicators built into the back to even stay where you put it. The other one wouldn't stay on without the clamp on. Right, I'll just grab the clamp. And I've just noticed as well, right, just wait a second, a rag somewhere. I've just noticed a bit of brake fluid. I must have spilt, so I'll just lift that off a second, make sure there's nothing on the inside of that. It's just a little drop, but I'm just going to make sure there isn't loads and loads hiding, because the last thing you want is brake fluid on your metal work of any description. Right, so that's back on. Now I'll get the clamp. I'm not fully tighten it yet, just sort of get it in position. It even sits in the housing, like in the switch housing tied here. There was a gap in there as well with the other one, so in a sense, I'm quite glad the other one was fucking wrong. This is a lot fucking neater fit. So I'll just nip it up for now. I'll tighten it up properly later, because what I've also got to do, when I get sat on the bike later, both sides of the handlebars I've got these controls to manoeuvre just ever so slightly till they're just sat right. Then I'll tighten everything up properly. But that's the master cylinder sat on, bolted on, not tight obviously as I've just said. So I'll just get the nut and washer for the mirror. Put that back on. Obviously the mirrors will be to set as well. Just give that a... That's cool. Just making sure there's a gap. When I pull the lever, making sure there's a gap where the wiring runs down. Otherwise I'll cut the wiring in half. Right, we've got the banjo to take off, which is a 12 point. Hopefully a 3/8. Now the banjo comes with obviously new washers as well. So we'll get one either side and get that screwed on. I'm going to leave that sticking out a little bit. Right, and that's that tightened up. So we'll take the top off. Now remember what I said, those that watched the other video, I'm going to backwards bleed this. So I'll get this top off. Which has got quite a good hod. I'll just stick that on top of a clean rag. Right, much better. Right, what I'm going to do next is I'll move you, I'll set you up in a different spot. That tighten up properly as well. As I say, I'll get you set up in a different spot down there, but basically what I'll be doing when I'm pushing the brake fluid in at the caliper, which I'll have you down there as well so you can see what's happening, I'll be using a long extendable mirror. Now, girlfriend's at work today, so I haven't got an assistant, so I'll use my long extendable mirror and have the mirror have it up here so I can see the reservoir, and then as I'm pushing the fluid in, it'll eventually come up into the reservoir, and when the reservoir gets probably about half full, that's when I'll close the little bleeder valve on the caliper, and then I'll just top that up as to the right level. But also, once all this is over and done with, bled, I'll pull the brake lever in and put a cable tie around it, as I explained in the last video. If you do that, any air that is still in the system, which I'm hoping to I'm hoping to get all of it out by the way I'm doing this, but if I don't, if there's like a tiny little air bubble left in it, air naturally wants to come to the top. So if you leave your lever pulled tight in with a cable tie on it, any air will just rise up the pipe, and you just leave it overnight and it'll come up the pipe and into your reservoir and then just come up into the top, so then you won't have any air in your system. Right, I'll knock you off for now and set you up in a different spot, and we'll get the brake bled up. Right, as you can see there, using a cable tie, and the mirror's fully extended so it's resting down in the yoke, trapped behind the brake cable. I've set the mirror so I don't have to hold it, but I can see when I'm down at the wheel. So I'll take you off this tripod and just... Right, so if I'm down here, obviously I'm going to be working down here and on the caliper part, but when I look up, get you in there, zoom in, you can see there, I can actually see into the reservoir. So, and you can just see there the mirror is extended all the way down into the yoke. So, right, I'll knock you off again and we'll get set up down here, and we'll start getting this brake bled up. Right, I've got my syringe. I use 100mm syringes. Basically, filled it with new brake fluid. And what I've got here, there's no air apart from about 3 inch at the end of the pipe where it goes on. And keep your level of your syringe low to start with, and then what happens is when you open the bleeder and you start pressing the syringe, because the air's at the highest point, you'll just be pushing air into the system rather than starting to push brake fluid in and then pushing air in. So if you give it a tap, if there is any air in the line, if you just by giving the line a tap with your finger, it just rattles the air so it comes up. So there's the level now, and then obviously you pick the syringe up so all the air is at the top of the syringe, on the syringe side that is. The air is just here, so when I start to push this syringe, it'll just start pushing the air out first and then it'll just be liquid. I'll be keeping an eye up there, up top on the mirror that I had set up, that I've still got set up should I say. So I'll just crack the bleed nipple. Right, I'm going to hold this just to make sure. Right, I'm going to start. I don't know if you can see that, the brake fluid's just started going in now. And I'm just injecting it very slowly. Now this does take time doing it this way, but you don't want to rush it anyways. The slower you can pump the liquid in, Oh, it's actually coming up now through the reservoir. Just go steady, because if you do it too fast it'll spray up in the air like a fountain. I'm just going to keep going till I've got, and I can see there on the mirror there's just no air coming through there at all now, it's just pure liquid. So keeping the pressure on just slightly, close the bleed nipple up, and then you can let your, just grab a rag which I thought I had next to me. Just put that underneath here and then pull the end off. Any spilt fluid, which there was just a drop, and then hod it up and just suck it back into the syringe. Just stick that to one side for now, and I'll knock you off and set you up in a different spot, and we'll see how things have gone up at the top end. Right, at the reservoir end, and I'm just going to top, oh, just spilled a bit of brake fluid then, just going to top this reservoir up. Needs just a little bit more in. I actually tipped it back in the bottle, the bleed bottle that I was using. Screw the top off. Just filling this up to its full level. Turn it off. Put the top back on that in a second. Very slowly pull the lever in. And there's no air bubbles coming up out of there now. Well, there wasn't to start with, like. So I'll put the cap back on. There was a screwdriver on here, and there you go. What do I do with that? Oh dear. Right, I seem to have misplaced my Phillips tape. Snip them down nice and tight. Don't strip the threads, like, it doesn't need to be that tight. And I've got a good hard lever now. So what I'll do, because I've got other stuff to do and I won't be riding the bike today anyways, I'll grab a cable tie. Basically, just put your cable tie together and then pull your lever in as far as you can pull it. Get any harder, I'll bust the fucking master cylinder. Right, and I'll just leave that like that for now. What I will do though is get a set of grip nips and cut the tail of that cable tie off, because normally I'll pop me selling the friggin' eye with it. Right, what I'll do now is I'll put the bike back on its little jack so it's sitting upright, and I think I'll get the rear mudguard on. Right, I'll knock you off for now and I'll back in a minute. Right, I'm going to fit this belt guard. Now I've had a bit of a look at it off camera. It wasn't a brilliant fit to start with. Really close to the tyre. But I've worked out the best combination for putting it on. So in the back, on this bottom one, it needs a spacer in the middle. So the bolt through, find the hole, there you go, and then obviously a nut on the back. Just do it loose for now, and then on this mounting here, it needs 2 washers in the middle. So put the nut on, the bolt on, sorry, and then the nut goes on. I don't know if I'm blocking your view here. The nut goes on. There's a lot of movement in this belt guard, so pull it up to its height. So you can get my finger in there and hold that nut. Just turn it. Just want to nip it up a touch. And then nip this back one up a bit. Don't nip it up too much, and make sure my cable's out the way for me number plate light. It sits in there. There's a very slight gap in that bit. The cable just sits nicely in it. So, right. Well then, if I can do this. That's it. Now as it's tightening up, it pulls the belt guard sort of not straight out, it's on at the bottom, but as you tighten it, it sort of comes out at the top, which is then giving me good clearance around the wheel and the tyre. I'll just have a quick look from the back, because it should also look a lot more in line than it used to. Right, so that's good. So I'll just tighten it up properly. And then get the spanner up on that one. Typical. Right, and that is the belt guard secure with lock washers on as well, on both of the... Now these aren't the original nuts and bolts that were on when I first got it. It was bolted from the back with like a acorn nut on this side. but it was running like the nut was sorry, the bolt was running so close to this pulley cover that I've got clearance. If I look in the back of there, in fact if I spin my wheel, I've got clearance, quite a bit of clearance actually on the nut at the back. Try and get my head down there to see. Yeah, so right, so that's the rear belt guard fitted, so I'll knock you off and we'll get on to the next bit. Right, one thing to do whenever you've done any work on handlebars, if you've loosened your gear off, don't just guess where your stuff is, and you'll find that when you're riding you think, oh, that's too far around or something. Just simple thing, sit on the bike, see where you're comfortable with your switches. That side's spot on, whereas I don't know if you can tell on the camera, but that one it's in the wrong place. It needs just pulled around. That's why I left this loose, because I knew I had this to adjust. Just pull it around a little bit. And it should be that's spot on at that now. And then just tighten everything up. It's a 2-minute job, but it can be a right pain in the arse if you put your switch gear on in the wrong spot. It just makes it awkward. It's still rideable, just makes it awkward. So tighten all that up. Now the screw in the back side, I've already tightened that, but because the front one's still loose, it enabled me to move it. So I'll tighten that one up. I've got the Torx bit, I just haven't got my ratchet. Yeah, so just make sure that all your controls are tight. Once you've got them where you want them, that is. And then I've got the mirrors. I tighten the mirrors up, both of them, because they actually move on a like a ball sort of thing, but you can loosen. There's a bit on the bottom of the mirror, on the mirror stem bit here. You just slacken that off a touch, put the mirror where you want it, and then tighten that back up while holding your mirror, and that just holds your mirror in place nice and tight as well. Let's say that one's, the actual mirror's tight, the stem where it's bolted through the handlebars, but the mirror itself, just get that in there, the mirror itself is there. If I tighten that one up now, that's spot on. So I'll do that off camera anyways. It's don't need to show you that, but she's nearly there now. Just a couple of little bits and pieces to do, which I'll just do off camera. I'll stick my number plate in, etc. And then I'll take it out for a test run. Just make sure it brakes are 100% and that it's working properly. And then I'll get it sorted so it's on the road properly, and then go from there. Now, obviously this is coming to an end, this series of videos, but there might not be any for a while. Might servicing video or something like that on one of the bikes. But I am going to be doing some changes. Let's say when I've ridden this, I'll make my mind up whether I'm going to keep it soft tail or whether I'm just going to build a hard tail for it. There's another option crept into the equation is my girlfriend has always, up until she did a bike test a while, like last year, well, the year before even, she's always had trikes, and she fancies she's been sort of mentioning that she would like another trike rather than the bike. She just feels more safer, secure, whatever the word is, which is fair play if that's what she's used to. She's going to give her Harley this year, you know, give it a good year to see how she gets on. But at the end of the year, if she decides that she wants a trike, what I might do is build this into a trike for her, but like not just stick a trike back end on it, actually build a whole new chassis for it, long forks, trike obviously back end with some humongous wheels on, etc. Proper custom job, and if that happens, then obviously I'll just build something else, but we'll see. Anything can happen. So for now, I'll make it a day on this, call it a day on these series. I'll probably make a little short video when it's all been tested and stuff, just let you know how it's all going type of thing. But then there might not be any for a while, so we'll see how it goes. I might even modify that bike lift, make it just a little bit wide. I didn't want a proper big wide lift, one for space, but that narrow one that I bought is just a little bit on too narrow, if you know what I mean. So I might modify my lift, but I might just put that in a separate section. So for now, we'll call it a day. As I say, when I get this thing MOT'd and everything, I'll out on a run, etc., I'll make a quick video of how it is, and we'll go from there. Right, catch you later.